Good evening. Some of you have heard about the Kansas Lodge Research archival kits. Some of you have not. Tonight, we're going to be talking to a lodge that has found some really interesting things within their archives and have really come to the fact of knowing that using an archival kit like the Lodge of Research has to offer is in dire need. We're going to learn about why that decision has been come to, plus about the history of their lodge and some of the amazing artifacts that have been found. So stick with us. We have an amazing episode lined up for you right after this on Historical Light.
Welcome back to the Historical Light Masonic Podcast, dedicated to illuminating our past and bringing our Masonic history to light since 2016. And now, enjoy the show.
Good evening and welcome back to Historical Light, an independent Masonic show focused on the historical events and aspects within Freemasonry. I'm your host, Brother Alex Powers, and thrilled to be back with you again. And surprise, we've had technical issues before. We're having a few this evening, but we're hoping to get them worked out pretty quick here. Our guest lost connection and is working on getting back with us. But until we get him back on the screen here momentarily, I do want to give you guys a heads up to give me a little bit of grace this evening. As you hear, I sound kind of atrocious and probably look the same way as well. I've been dealing with an illness most of the week and has turned into COVID. So I'm at home, not feeling fantastic, but the show goes on. I do need to throw out a huge thank you. Obviously, if you guys tuned in for our last episode, it wasn't me on here. It was Most Worshipful Brother Kellerman, who's a good friend of the show and has been on several times before. He was gracious enough to hop in and take over as host that evening with Most Worshipful Tony Borum to cover that excellent episode on Tuscan Lodge, because I was dealing with some family matters with my mother's health issues and wasn't able to be here for that. So huge thank you to Brother Kellerman for supporting the show like he always does, but hopping in at the last minute's notice and being able to take that on for us. Very, very much appreciated. Well, brothers, it is a huge honor to be back. I'm thrilled to be on the show, and I'm really looking forward to talking to Brother Chris Neeley, who we've got coming on this evening. Oh, I think I see a camera coming on, so let's see if we can get him on here real fast.
What's going dark?
Hey, what's going on, brother?
Technical difficulties?
No worries at all.
We go from having 5G signal, no problems at all, to my phone literally claiming that it has no internet connectivity at all whatsoever.
You know, that's the way it goes. And I was telling those listening that, we cover Masonic history, but if our show has a history of one thing, it's technical difficulty. So it's all
okay. I like to honor history. And I hate to delay this anymore, but in my furious rage and trying to get this to work, I walked to the office, unplugged our new router, plugged our new one in, or unplugged the new one, unplugged the old one back in, and in doing so, I actually took my notes with me. So,
not a
2 seconds, Alex. 2 seconds.
And another apology, I just noticed I actually had the studio speakers on. So if you're getting a little bit of an echo there during the introductions, that should be gone now. Sorry about that. And I might be cutting my mic out here and there just so I'm not coughing in your guys' ears. But, Brother Neeley has shared some really cool things on Facebook over the last couple years that he's found in his lodge. And being the history nerd that I am, I'm always pinging when I see that stuff. And we're going to kind of touch on those items this evening. And especially one that you guys might have seen recently that kind of ties into the Kansas Lodge Research, which I talked about in the intro, shared an amazing minutes book or portion of one with some damage. And we're going to cover that. But the thing is, that damage can happen in many different ways and at a moment's notice. We never know what tomorrow is going to bring. So as we go through this, just keep in mind the things that we have in our lodge archives and our possession, they're treasures. And, some of them are more rare than others and some less, but it's a shame to lose them. So, especially our records and our historical documents, the sooner we can archive those and preserve that data, the better. Because God forbid something happens to the physical form, at least we don't lose the written history. Because with so many of these lodges, like Most Worshipful Kellerman, who I was talking about earlier, dropped off some stuff today from lodges that had merged decades and decades ago. Nobody's even heard of them. The history's gone if we lose those books. So really, really important stuff. I'm going to shut up here, and I need to introduce our guest this evening, Brother Chris Neeley from Hays, Kansas. Brother, thank you so much for joining in with us.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you for having me. I'm actually kind of giddy just to be involved and to be on your show. Long time listener, first time caller.
Fantastic. Thrilled to have you.
So I'm the master of Hays Lodge. Have been for some time, and as well I'm the area deputy grand master for Area 1, which is northwest Kansas. Alex invited me to come and discuss some of the things that I found while frankly just cleaning my lodge. In 2020, I'm a state employee, and the governor sent us home for 2 weeks, even though my agency works remotely anyway from pickup trucks. We pleaded with her, but she had her way, so we went home for a couple weeks, and in that time, I'd come up to the lodge and start straightening things up, and in doing so, found a number of really great things. And I've continued to do that. It doesn't. There's shelves in the office where we congregate once a month, and even tonight, I found things that are worth sharing, that are worth saving and preserving, that have histories of their own. It's just phenomenal what our lodges hold in terms of physical history and things to tie into other things.
No doubt. No doubt. Brother, I want to thank you so much for coming on tonight. I can't wait to dive in. But before we do, I want to get a little better understanding of who you are, a little bit of an icebreaker before we jump into the main conversation here. 2 questions we typically ask is, one, did you have family history in Freemasonry prior to yourself?
I did.
Okay.
However, it wasn't. I'm not a Lewis. My dad's not a Freemason. My grandfather, neither grandfather, was a Freemason, and I take that back. One grandfather joined in Topeka. I don't recall which lodge, and he joined specifically to go to Arab Shrine. And for whatever reason, he decided he didn't really fit in. So he had his apron, and he had the fez that I still have, and a Masonic ring, but there wasn't a whole lot of depth there. But his older brother, who was from South Carolina, who lived quite a lot longer than my own grandfather did, he's really the reason that I'm here. We spoke about it a lot. I'm a college fraternity guy, so I did a lot of ritual, and I took that very seriously. And he knew that. We discussed some of the overlap, and one day he called me while I was working and said, "I want you to do me a favor." And um, perhaps foolishly, I said, "Anything." And he was like, "Just go get that petition and fill it out." and and so when people say like, "Well, nobody solicits you," like, well, I mean, sure, yeah. So I went and I filled out the petition, and here I am in Hays Lodge. After the fact, I found out that my grandmother's father was a Freemason in Burlingame, Kansas, and he was the man who taught everybody the work. They'd go to the coal room and they'd sit next to the furnace, and he would do it all mouth to ear. And coming from the college fraternity where I really owned that stuff, and coming into this after having kids and everything, and I was kind of like, it is gone. My ability to do this stuff is not what it was. And then once I heard that, I'm like, we're talking about a literal, like a coal miner with a ton of kids and he was doing it all mouth to ear. No, Chris, we're gonna do this. So that's why I've started to kind of learn things, and why I took a look at the stair lecture, and I'm like, we're gonna do it, and so we can do. I shouldn't have said that publicly, Alex. Can we redact that? Like, I don't want anybody to know that I can do the stair.
We're live. This is out there
Oh,
for
this is
good.
bad. This is bad.
No, that's fantastic, man. So we've learned a little bit about what brought you to Freemasonry. I'm curious though, what's kept you around?
Um, uh, a combination of things. Um, the idea of self improvement, of service, um, uh, esprit de corps, camaraderie, brotherhood, a challenge. Did I already say a challenge? It's a project, it's a hobby. A lot of my other hobbies have taken a backseat to coming up here and digging into things. And just when I feel my spirit to start to wane, I find something in the vault or in a closet or rolled up and stuffed next to a locker, and it's electrifying, and you go like, yeah, this is it. So
That's always the funnest stuff to find too. That's the type of nerd I am. I love digging through lodges and old rooms that haven't been touched in years.
yeah. Alex, I know it's not your preferred format for a guy to go on a walkabout and show things, but just tonight alone, just setting some things up as props. Because uh, Alex asked me at 6:40 this morning to be a part of this show through no fault of his own, and so I'm like, well, I can't extemporaneously speak quite that much. So I was at the lodge and I was throwing some stuff out, and um, just even this evening, I found some things that were really kind of cool.
We cannot wait to get into them. So my only thing is your cell phone signal going to hold up walking around, you think?
Well, I've switched to Wi-Fi. Like I said, I got
Fantastic.
we started switching over to a brand new, better router, or and things didn't work. So I went in there and grabbed all the old stuff and plugged it in, and it was like,
There
you're
you go.
connected to Hayes Lodge. So I think we're okay.
Fantastic.
Nothing quite so infuriating as going from our test call that we had earlier to my phone saying, like, you can't do anything, you're dead in the water. So
Where is it all? Well, of course, it always works great in the test call, and then
of course.
it's kind of like Masonic ritual, right? You've got it down,
Mm,
work
yeah,
perfect. You get up there, and it's like, wait, what?
yeah, yeah.
Well, real quick, I want to give a huge shout out to everyone watching over on the Facebook side. And Brother Kenneth Beeler saying in the comments here, bringing up some Masonic history, tomorrow marks the 250th anniversary of the Boston Tea Party. And if you guys aren't up to date on what they're doing out there, we actually covered it several episodes back with Brother Brian Simmons up in Massachusetts. The Grand Lodge of Massachusetts has some amazing festivities lined up around that history and that anniversary. Definitely check that out. Go find their website and see if you can get up there and be a part of that, because it is history in the making. It's going to be really, really cool to see. Now, I'm excited to hear about Hayes Lodge. For one reason, I've been wanting to get out to Hayes for some time now, and it's been hinted and nudged, and Grand Lodge says we're holding this there and holding that there. And well, I think COVID kind of all, it's back. But I have not had the opportunity, and I've been that nerdy guy on Facebook, just having to watch you have all the fun digging through stuff. So I can't wait to see around and see some of the awesome things you've gotten, and then kind of tie in how the Kansas Lodge research can maybe help with some of that.
Yeah, and we do. I made the plug for the archival kits, but I have to admit I'm the guiltiest of them all. I've not checked one out, but we desperately need to. As our history shows, and a lot of lodges can mirror it, anything can happen at any time, and suddenly you don't have anything. And so, you really take proactive steps to get out in front of that. Now, Alex, I know you've asked me if I could go into the history of Hayes Lodge, and if that's what you'd like, I can do that right now.
Yeah. Let's touch on that before we see some of the items.
Yeah, so Hayes is one of those towns that we were part of the westward expansion. There is an Army fort in Hayes, and hence the Fort Hayes State University thing. And very much a Wild West town. I believe it's in Dances with Wolves, and it's kind of a wild place. And it was in 1878. A call went out in the newspaper looking for master masons to form a lodge in Hayes. And they didn't have many master masons show up, but they had like 200 people or something show up that were interested in the craft. And so they started putting things together. And we were officially chartered in 1880. And we were meeting in a building downtown, the Downing Hall, which was the land office. And we met there for the first 5 years. And then we went to another, they're calling it in our history the Ryan Hall, which was a block, and it had a store and a warehouse. And we were meeting on top of that, much in the old tradition of meeting on top of a store, which just alone, I'm like, yay, we were part of that. And it's not mentioned on the walking tour in Hayes, but Hayes has these giant bronze signs, and a walking tour in Ryan's block is part of that stop. And we were there until 1881, until we got to our new spot here on Main Street in 1889. And looking through these minute books the other day, last Sunday, as a matter of fact, I was bored and I needed to get out of the house. So I came up here and went through these books. And in 1929, these guys borrowed $15,000 to remodel the lodge. And I'm like, yo,
Wow.
that's a bunch of money. And so they did that in 1929, and then it burned down in 1943. And there's pictures I think I've posted online, perhaps, maybe not in the Kansas Freemasonry page, but I may repost those anyway. But it was a beautiful old Western town sort of building, corner entrance with a huge like marble edifice on Main Street. And so after it burned down, we obviously rebuilt in the exact same spot. And that got done in 1948. And I've actually pulled out blueprints from the rebuild, as well as some of the correspondence with the architect. And the neat thing about the architect is, I learned this while applying for a grant. The gentleman was a immigrant from Eastern Europe. I think it was Poland, and his name was Joseph Radoninski. And if you Google him, you can find him on Find a Grave, and he's in a mausoleum, and his first name is on the top line, and his last name on the bottom line, but right in between is a square and compass. So this was Brother Radoninski, and he was actually the state architect for the state of Kansas. He was appointed by the governor.
Interesting.
So our building was built by an architect of some note. So it's got that really cool mid-century modern. It's kind of a little bit transitional between help me out here, Art Deco and mid-century modern. So on the front of our building, the front of our building, we've got those stacked horizontal windows and that giant steel banded totem pole with all of our logos on it. So it's a pretty cool spot.
And you guys actually just redid like your front sign just a few years ago, correct?
We did, and we did make a choice where it had been kind of like a polished banding, but it's kind of in rough shape. So it's now black, but we repainted everything. We got brand new signs, and we've converted to LED. And the tradition is that you turn on the lodge light on lodge night, the chapter light on chapter night, but we're kind of thinking very few people are probably traveling through Hayes going like, well, let me see if the Eastern Star light is on because I want to knock on the door. Right. So now we're on a timer, and they all 4 or 5, however many there are out there, they all just turn on every night and kind of display, and then I get to tell people like, oh yeah, the entrance is under the giant Masonic sign. It's like 40 feet tall, and they're like, my whole life never noticed it.
Yeah. No, I mentioned that because I was super proud of you guys. I mean, you're
Well,
kind of,
thank you.
in my mind, a staple for Kansas because, I mean, this is a worldwide problem, right? Our temples are falling apart and crumbling, and it's hard for everyone to keep up with them. And we see that happen so much that
Yeah.
every lodge you go to's just got kind of crap falling apart, and you just look the other way. And you guys weren't just, throwing some spray paint. I mean, you guys had crews out there. You had a crane out
Yeah.
there. You were really investing in saying, okay, this building means something to us. This organization means something. We're going to secure its future. And that was huge.
It's a matter of ownership. And I don't want to get this convoluted in case any of my brothers from Hayes are here listening. It's not about being a good Mason or a good man or any of these other things. It's just if you go to like a first aid course,
Mhm.
they tell you like, okay, you're getting ready to give CPR on somebody. You need to do two things. You need to be doing the CPR, but you also need the professionals coming. You don't yell out, somebody call 911. You go, you call 911. And that's the thing. Nobody felt, no one was given that direction, that ownership of the
Yeah.
task. And in our case right now, I've got to say, like, when it comes to all these like physical building improvements, like, sure, like it might have been kind of my idea, whatever, but our presumptive master next week, hopefully,
Mhm.
Dustin's our guy. So I have to give a shout out to Dustin. A new roof, and we want someone to watch the roofers. Dustin, the sign, all that. So
Fantastic. Good for you guys. Yeah. You're really leading by example. And that's really, really fantastic.
So you ready to go look at some stuff? Or
Let's do it. Let's see what you
all
got.
right, now everybody's got to bear with me. We're gonna do a little camera switch.
It's a creepy view. I feel like a baby and you're holding me.
You didn't have to say. Okay, so this is the picture that started it right here,
Yes.
and I don't think this is actually the page. So if we look at this book, the front is 1948 to 1951. And 1951 in Kansas, actually 1951, 1953, and maybe one other year was just phenomenal in terms of the floods. There were three major floods in 1951, including the ones that got the Kansas City stockyards in Manhattan and Topeka. And so this book, evidently the secretary, because the Hayes Lodge has always been on the second floor. So we're 30 feet above the ground, and I know it wasn't that bad. So evidently the secretary was taking the book home or something.
That's possible. I don't know about the Hayes flood, but I know, like you mentioned, with the stockyards and stuff in Kansas City in that time period. I mean, the floods were insane, really. I mean, there's
Yeah.
pictures of the downtown Kansas City one where people are literally sitting on rooftops, and it looks like they're
Yeah.
on the shoreline.
So, well, I mean, maybe so. Maybe that was it. So, I'm trying to think here. It was something like 11 inches of rain, 7 miles west of Hayes in 2 hours.
Wow.
And so there was no time to get anybody out. And this flood in 1951, there were actually fatalities here in Hayes, and one of them was the stepson of the emeritus president of Fort Hayes University, a gent named L.D. Wooster. And in the course of getting ready for this thing, so I pulled out the flood book, and then I pulled out this older book because quite a while ago, I just, again, absolutely randomly going through history, I find that there's a Masonic cornerstone on Fort Hays State University that's not in the history of the Kansas Grand Lodge. They
Really?
list those. They list those out in the history of Kansas Masonry, but ours isn't there. So I pull out this book and I start looking. And I opened it tonight with the intention of showing you all the entry. But instead, what I find is that on November 3rd, 1919, L.D. Wooster, where are we at? L.D. Wooster had his petition read in our lodge in 1919. So he's a member of Hayes Lodge in 1919. In 1951, his son is killed in the flood.
Wow.
And so just this evening, like I said, just this evening, opening these books up, there's already history of not only Masonry, but of Hayes.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's one thing that a lot of people don't realize. So many of our brothers look at those minute books and they just see these boring books. And at surface level, yeah, minute books are written extremely in a boring manner. But as Masons, we kind of understand what those minute books mean and how the flow of the meeting goes. And it gives us the ability to kind of read between the lines. And then when you're able to add data points like what you just showed, you're able to connect a lot of dots with external history as well. So they do become quite valuable.
Yes, absolutely. And then just by chance, I opened this page and that says Neeley, although it's not spelled right. It's missing the third E. It's Neeley for me, but this is Neely. And again, one of the funny things is that our secretary, Dennis Johnson, owns land that was previously owned by Neely's that spelled it this way. There's a one-room stone house still on that property where this man lived. I don't know if it was this man, but a Neely lived there, drove a Model T without brakes, and dug snake root, which is a natural source of Novocaine.
Wow. Interesting. Well, I mean, I would imagine if it wasn't them, they're probably related.
I would think. So if you're fine, I'm moving on, Alex. I'm moving
Yeah.
on. So, so many of our lodges have got the Knight Templar sword for the Tyler sword. And with any luck, next week, I'll be the Tyler. Okay, so we're going through some things and we start finding different swords and lockers and things like that. So I'm taking a look at this one, and it kind of looks like the real deal. And I don't know if I can get a good view on that. But we got a square and compass on the scabbard. And I did some research, and these swords, they're not marked in any way, but they follow a union pattern. And I believe they were assembled from parts left over during the Civil War and sold in catalogs specifically for fraternal use.
Interesting.
But as the presumptive Tyler, if I can get there to the out of the door, this is the sword that I'll be using. This sword is marked U.S. CWA 1964. This is a genuine Union Army musician sword. And that's the sword that I will choose to use. And that was in a closet or a locker. I don't remember which. And so for me, that's what it will be.
That's really, really cool. Do you happen to know how those were acquired? Primarily that one?
I do not. That's over the course of last Sunday, I began to look to see if I could find that. So I grabbed the earliest minute book to see if I could find a notation of someone donating it, but I don't know. Now, I mean, think about when Hayes Lodge is, coming together in the late 1870s, 1880.
Right.
We're not very far removed at all. So some of those gentlemen absolutely brought their swords with them. Saint or Mount Allen Cemetery in Hayes is filled with the graves of Union soldiers. I mean, we've got a ton of them. So,
I think that's a really cool aspect to have implement in the lodge. I mean, yeah, you're right. We see the Knights Templar swords pretty much at every lodge, and no disrespect to those brothers, but it's not blue
sorry,
lodge
Alex.
masonry, right? And
Right.
when you see that, it's kind of like beyond masonry, we're men first, and we come from the world around us. And when you see implements like that, it really ties that in. It ties, who those men were that were part of that lodge, and those individuals really make up that lodge, and it gives you insight into the personality of that lodge, what it was like, what the members were like. Personally, I really like that tie-in.
Yeah. Well, thanks. I mean, if I get to be the Tyler after 7 years of the Master, if I get to be the Tyler, that's the sword. Moving over here for those Yorkite guys, you might recognize my tabletop here. It belongs in a museum. But here's the. I'm sorry, Alex. I'm probably messing your stuff up, but here's a correspondence from the architect.
Oh, sweet.
So I mean, just so many of these things, but in a fireproof file cabinet in a drawer that is labeled like Masonic concerns or something like that. My favorite folder is this one that says Masonic material. Yes, gentlemen, that is why we are here. It is the Masonic material. Thank you. It's very descriptive.
Not the rest of the massive file cabinet, but particularly
Right.
that folder.
Right. So this is the second floor. This is the lodge room. There, the lodge level of the Masonic hall, and it's our building is 7,500 square feet per floor. We got 3 floors. So it is a massive building.
Wow.
Right.
I did not realize it was that big.
Yeah. So we've always had a store underneath us. We've been very fortunate for that. Excuse me. So there's the basement, the main floor, and then the Masonic floor.
Okay.
And so you can imagine the size of this preparation room.
Wow. Yeah.
And then I don't know what CR stands for, Alex. I mean, I don't know, but it doesn't seem like something that we should be doing, whatever it is. It seems kind of sketchy, maybe.
Might have some skulls in there.
No. But it's interesting because this is not actually how our lodge is laid out. We don't have a preparation room that size. It's actually here in the vestibule. So this whole area down here became a commandery locker room. So it's just a very large room. So we don't have that preparation room or those 2 ritual closets as the plans indicated.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's very neat to find this and take a look at it and to have that.
Let me ask you this: from being in your lodge that long and being able to explore around, do you think it was ever that way and maybe changed over time, or was there potentially just a change in planning at the build phase?
I don't believe so. I think if I open these envelopes, which I've wanted to do for a very long time, is look at the correspondence with the architect. I think once I do that, we're going to find that. Sorry, Alex, I'm pushing the wrong things. I think we're going to find that the build was changed. So here we go.
As someone that used to work construction, though, I am a nerd for those old school blueprints like that, and I haven't seen ones that good except for the Grand Lodge ones that are scanned in, which are awesome to look at.
Sorry, Alex, I keep forgetting to put you into a landscape mode. I'm very, very sorry for being a belligerent misuser of your platform.
No, you're great, brother.
Yeah, so for me, I've always been an architect nerd. I made a post about architecture on my personal profile on Facebook the other day. Um, it was always kind of one of those things I thought I'd, perhaps even go into, and to see these blueprints and the correspondence with somebody, I'm really looking forward to get the opportunity to look into those.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm stoked to hear once you get to that point. And also the plans to preserve those, how you guys plan to make sure those are around for years to come, or at least the data within.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Um, we need to scan everything that we can. And it's a project that we've had. Hayes Lodge in the past 10 years has had very, very large practical concerns, just concerned with our survival. So we really had to put our focus into that and being able to do what we need to do and do it the way that it's supposed to be done. If anybody's read the bylaw proposals that have been published now, you might see a little bit of truth in what I said about how things were in Hayes when I started. I mean, that bylaw idea didn't come out of thin air. For those of you that haven't seen it, Hayes Lodge is a big lodge, but our guys live in Pennsylvania and they live in Kansas City and they live in Denver. Doesn't do me a lot of good as a master. So things are a big struggle. Not so much anymore, but
Yeah. And that's, I mean, honestly, when we think about that, because you mentioned Hayes is a big lodge, and there's a lot of lodges around the state that have a much smaller membership that honestly just shouldn't still be around, but we have for one reason or another. I mean, I can say
Mhm.
Gardner, for one, honestly should have probably died years ago. But the one thing there is we had membership because back in the day there was a big military base here, the Olathe Naval Base, that was huge for World War II. And as guys were coming through and being stationed there, it was kind of turned into a tradition. They became Masons, and we had years and years where God, they'd have several degrees per week. Um, and now those guys live all over the United States, but they're not in
Right,
lodge, right?
because you keep your mother lodge.
Yeah.
So you might move, but you it's that tradition of you maintain your mother lodge membership. But then, on the one hand, it's helpful. They get your dues money, but if they need to meet a quorum of 7 instead of 5, and
Yeah.
you got 20 people that live in town, and you're like, man, you guys are a big lodge.
Yeah.
Yes and no, but
Functional because the lights turn on is not functional in all ways.
yeah, no, it's funny that you mentioned the naval lodge and the kind of tradition I think you said, but one of our members who's now passed joined Freemasonry in Seattle. He went to work at Boeing, and I think it was like the supervisor on his floor was all like, "So Monday you're going to be a Freemason," and that's just this department joins the lodge. So there you go. And the railroad was the same way. And the one lodge that Hayes has taken on in consolidation was called Apollo Lodge. It was 15 miles west in Ellis, and Ellis was a huge railroad hub, and so I imagine they were probably the same way. And in fact, I'd like to show it, but I think if I went and grabbed a picture and tried to show you it would on this phone, it would probably not look very good. But um, I was going through this box of pictures that for the first time I saw this evening, and I pulled out this little bitty sliver of a picture, and it's Mason sitting at a large secretary desk. And I'm like, must have either been the old lodge or wait a minute, there's a giant Union Pacific crest hanging on the side of the desk. It was Apollo Lodge. Like it had to be. And so it was kind of these little interesting things that you can pull together. But Apollo Lodge provides an example of something that we keep talking about. I found these pictures, I found a few records, but we have nothing in terms of furniture from Apollo Lodge. which leads me to believe that we didn't get everything.
Sure.
So Walter Chrysler of Chrysler Cars, you youngin Masons may not know anything about. He's a famous Freemason from our area that I should have records of his. I should find his name somewhere in this lodge so I can scan it and do something with it. But where is it? Is it with the two pillars we should have brought? Is it with the altar? Because they're not here. So when we do these consolidations, we need to be absolutely sure that we're going through the right process and we're securing that history and bringing it back in.
Yeah.
Because if there's ever a hope of rekindling a Masonic presence somewhere or maintaining that connection to that town, doing something with that history is probably going to be a big part of it. It's either history or money. So I mean, like, take your pick.
I was having a very similar conversation with a brother, past Grandmaster, earlier today, just about that, about the implements of a lodge, and they're closing down, no plans to what to do with them. They're probably going to get left behind, and we see that happen so much. I mean, just a couple years ago, the big auction was like pretty much purely lodge items, right? And I mean, we see that so much left behind, or they end up on eBay. And
oh yeah. There was a lady in Hayes trying to sell I think it was an apron on Facebook, and she wanted astronomical money, and she was being a real jerk to everybody. And I'm like, it's literally just an apron, lady. Like, we're not. And then somebody's actually got a huge master seat with the flanking 2 seats. It's like a whole huge piece they were trying to sell, and it's just like, how does this stuff get out of? How do we lose control of it? Which, I mean, that's why the lodge is consolidating, is because nobody's taking ownership and, like, whatever. But not necessarily. I don't want to offend anybody, because I mean, consolidations happen for different reasons. So don't take that the wrong way, brothers. But when we do consolidations, I think, what was it? Aubrey just consolidated.
I think so. That sounds right.
Aubrey into Stanley. They did a bang up job on making sure that they've, at least secured a legacy in their hometown. And I know that Right Worshipful Doug Wilkinson, he did something the same, I think, in Blue Springs, or can't remember the name of the town north of Manhattan. The same deal. I mean, there's no reason to just pull the whole thing out and leave. If we can leave a tie into a community and continue to have a Masonic presence, let's do that. Why would we not?
Pardon me. I'm trying not to cough here tonight. I think an important aspect to tie in before we jump away from it is, finding some of those items online, because there's a lot of our brothers that, maybe own those aspects or this and that. And we've had brothers here before that, have gotten irritated at me for my personal opinion. That's, it's not always my preference to see those placed into public facing auctions. I think sometimes it's going to happen either way. I think it's less harmful for it to happen to Masons versus public facing. That's when I just really am not a fan of selling our goods to the public. And the reason why is exactly what you just said about, we find those out there for these astronomical prices. Not just that, we find them all over eBay saying satanic, Illuminati, devil worship, all this magic spells. I found literally our minute books online saying satanic Luciferian magic money spells. And it just, it's BS. But
did you check the money spells, Alex, to make sure that
that might have actually
worked
at that point? But
I mean,
we fight so much this public image of those BS remarks, and then
we do.
When we allow those to go out there, it harms us in multiple ways, because one, it further drives that becomes those hot keywords that we find out there. It solidifies that. We got randos buying these minute books and these other aspects because they think they're going to have some magic spell when they're only important to guys like us. And then we can't get our hands on them because someone wants $5,000 for something that holds no value to anybody but you and me.
Yeah.
And through the Kansas Lodge research, we personally dealt with that a few years ago. There was a lodge that was defunct. I had actually never even heard of it before, completely shut down. And a profane had a box that he had got from an estate sale from every book and record from their entire existence, from under dispensation to the closing day. And he wanted I think he wanted $10,000 or something. And it was just this hostile conversation. You'll pay me this, or I'm going to take it in the backyard and incinerate it right now. And, it was that same type of stuff. He's putting it out there saying it's all this nefarious stuff. And I'm just, I'm not a fan, because it hurts us in multiple ways. That data there, that's all we had for that particular lodge. That's all that, still existed from their existence. And we couldn't get our hands on it at the time because of that particular reason. So when we do that to public facing, it drives and promotes that high bid culture to the wrong people. And that's, we struggle with our personal image to the public already as it is.
Oh,
And
yeah.
this makes it worse, unfortunately. It digs a little deeper.
I had my first meaningful, I think I know what you're getting at conversation the other day. It was with somebody that we know. They've coached our kids and very nice people. But the guy was like, "Hey, I heard a rumor about you." And I'm like, panic. What now? And he's like, "Oh, I heard you're a Freemason." Meanwhile, I'm wearing my cowboy boots that have got the Past Masters logo on them sticking out, but he doesn't know what that is. So then he, starts asking me questions, and he's very good natured about it. He was very polite, but underneath that, knowing what I know about him, that guy legitimately is wondering what it is that I do, what kind of a person I am, because he doesn't know. So I drank a bunch of bourbon, and I got on eBay and I bought Freemasonry for Dummies, and I'm gonna give it to him.
There you go.
I figured that was probably the right thing to do.
I had a similar experience. Actually, just Friday night at my wife's work holiday party. Went up to get a drink, and lady I didn't know from Adam, but she knew my wife and recognized me. And she goes, "Oh, you're Yvette's husband? Oh, yeah, good to meet you." She goes, "You're in the Illuminati, right?" Sure. And she just walks away. And I was like, I don't know if she was joking or not, but it is what it is at this point. That conversation is concluded.
Yeah, I've had people make kind of like little fun remarks that you're like, yeah, okay, I already hire. But this conversation was different. Very, very friendly. We continued to talk throughout the evening, which was our kids' concert. But he definitely had I think he had real concerns about what we do or what I do. And since we see each other regularly, Hayes has got like 20,000 people in it. So, I mean, I think it's important that I do something.
Definitely.
And because it's, he's a very good dude, and I need him to know that we're, kindred spirits. If masonry's not for him, that's fine, but he needs to at least know that I'm not coming up here and riding the goats. Alex.
Where's the end broadcast button?
Is that the word? You need to put that on your onboarding email that you send out. Don't say the G word.
Don't say the G word. No. Oh, unless you're an Oddfellows. That's where it comes
Right.
from.
That was a great episode. I recommend it every time I have an opportunity to.
So we've got Brother Michael Stoops. I don't know if he's writing from Ireland or the U.S. I think he might actually be here right now. But he brings up a point on your giving the Freemasons for Dummies to a profane. Said, so Freemasons for Dummies is okay, but the chairs of a defunct lodge is not. That's an interesting point. What are your thoughts, brother?
I'm honestly less concerned with the physical property falling in to private hands. It is, it kind of sucks. I'd rather it didn't. But there's not a lot going on there. You know, I can look at the pillars and I'm like, oh, that's a really neat thing. Or brother Troy Miller, who lives here in Hayes, he bought an entire lodge off eBay from Southeast Kansas. His work or his TV stand is an altar. Um, Gorgeous, beautiful altar, better than, not better, but you know, fancier than Hayes Lodge altar. And that's,
With no disrespect to the brother, that kind of makes me cringe a little bit.
well, he was kind of looking around and he was like, wait a minute. And he asked the guy, like, well, what else do you have? And it turns out it was a lodge that just recently fell out of use, or, you know, just closed in Southeast Kansas. So he was like, do not sell anything else. And so he went and got it. And I don't know the rest of the details, but he got everything. And so physical furniture, you know, it's neat. I prefer it stay within the fraternity, but it's not that priceless history that our minute books are. You know, you're not really save like a pencil written signature underneath an altar, or a stenciled on and find out that the thing was built in Lawrence or the KC Bottoms or something like that. You're not going to get a whole lot from that furniture. Now I think, you know, Freemasonry for Dummies was written in a way that it's very targeted towards the uninitiated. It's, you know, it's not displaying any secrets or anything else like that, and it's a very informational thing. I wasn't just going to throw the book at the guy either. There was going to be a letter involved that, you know, indicated that I am not in any way trying to encourage him to join Freemasonry. I just need to not have this family that we know in Hayes walking around thinking that we're weirdos. So I just want to do it in terms of building a bridge, getting an ally, getting someone that knows that our order is benign. You know, that we're, you know, benevolent and we're trying to do things.
Sure. Yeah, and I agree too. I think that, you know, the way that particular book was written was definitely public facing. You know, to Stoop's point, I don't know so much that just the mere fact of implements of a lodge being in the public disturbs me. It's more what I've seen when that happens, and it's, you know, the sales aspect is, it's purely because we do get it on eBay, and if it wasn't on there for, you know, a minute book for $5,000 advertising satanic spells, you know, if someone was like, hey, $15 for a minute book, $20, what, oh sweet, you know, you saved history, something that would have gone in the trash, and that's useful to me, I'd pay $20 all day long. But when, you know, it hits that other way, that rubs me the wrong way, and I think harms us more. Yeah, for example, when they were moving out of the Grand Lodge, it was on the Yorkright side, but the Yorkright guys had a bunch of stuff they weren't taking with them, and they threw it all in the dumpster out back. There were seals from, you know, the Yorkright side. I don't know exactly, old historic seals, bunch of documents, all that, and it all ended up on eBay under those terms. And I talked to the guy, and he's, you know, very much of that aspect. Hey, it sells. I get it, but it's also crappy. It doesn't help us. But
No, it doesn't. And even like old seals and stuff, if you go to Harold Warp's Pioneer Village in Nebraska, you'll see how they display seals. I mean, you take a nice piece of paper or something, you stamp it, you put the seal and the stamp both in a case so you can see what they both look like, and boom, you're there. What does it take up to store those?
It's a double-edged sword, though, at the same time, because where do we put it all? You know what I mean? As we are losing more and more, I don't have all the answers. I don't think.
I mean, yeah, you're talking about double-edged swords. Owning a temple is a double-edged sword, but the conversation for another day, I think. But yeah.
Well, I don't want to take up the whole time talking on that, because I do want to touch on where Hayes is at today and the future for Hayes as well, as we near the end of the hour.
So we're kind of we're not entirely out of the woods, but we've got pretty good turnout, comparable with anybody in terms of percentages here in Hayes. You know, we're continuing to plan for the future, and keep an eye on things. We know that we're not anywhere near kicking back and relaxing. So we do make use of a quasi progressive line, and we plan. We're trying to plan ahead of time and make sure that we continue to keep working. It's absolutely essential that we don't let up now. So just continue to review our situation and what we can do better, and we just can't get complacent. We just got to keep moving forward. We're not a crazy come from behind win story. We're came from behind and now we're okay story, and that's all there is to it. So continue to keep chipping away.
Well, I'm really hopeful that I do get the opportunity, and if not for an event or something, just of my own merit, to get off my butt and get out there and see you again in person, but also to visit and nerd through some of your stuff. I want to say, pardon me, with Most Worshipful Stoops in the comments here, and please correct me if I'm wrong. I want to say Stoops is the one that had like Leadership Academy planned for being in Hayes. Was that correct?
Yep.
And that was COVID that hit us, and we took.
We got COVID.
I was looking forward to coming out there.
Yeah,
think,
it would have been good.
Are there any plans for something like that in the future, possibly?
Do we?
Well, have you heard anything about maybe getting back out there?
No, I have not.
We can nudge. We can nudge.
Yeah, we can nudge. I think Leadership Academy would go okay. I think that's probably the right size and the right crowd. But we are kind of out here to a bit. But,
well, yeah. That's fantastic. Before we wrap up and do our toast for this evening, I'm curious. You're talking about, we've gone through preserving our history, securing our history. We've gone through building improvements. We've talked about future as far as hopes, but what is the plans for securing Hayes Lodge moving into the future? What do you see that vision of what Hayes is going to be in the years to come?
Well, first we need to get an archival kit from the Kansas Lodge research. No, I mean, it really comes down to instituting that culture of being proactive and having that ownership and instilling that. Of the people that are that have come into the fraternity under my tenure, I guess, I'm like flat up told them like, hey, we're totally rebuilding things. This is going to be work, and so they know what the deal is when they come in, and so we've tried to instill that culture of what we want Freemasonry to look like. That's really about it that anybody can do is like, what do you want Freemasonry to look like? Think about it and work towards that.
Yeah.
And so we're just making sure that as we go forward, the people that are going to be in the warden's chairs and the master's chair, they understand that and that they're working for that as well. We're fortunate that we have a renter, so our building is, we're not in any danger of losing our temple. But we just losing the culture of the lodge is the biggest part of it. You've got to institute something that's worth doing and make sure that whoever's coming up behind you is ready to do that. And that's part of the reason why I've been the master for so long is, there's that joke about like, oh, you finally got it right. Yeah, I did. Finally, I didn't want to just like, oh, you've been a master mason for a year, you were the junior warden, and well, guess what? Because that's what happened with me, and it worked out. But
yeah,
we don't want to do that. We want to be more thoughtful and deliberate about what it is that we're doing, in terms of making sure that that vision continues to go forward. I mean, and you can't do it without talking. I mean, the book.
Yeah.
There's a book called The Craft-Driven Lodge. Everybody needs to read it. And it's so stupid. The thesis statement of that book is like, talk to everybody in your lodge and find out what they want and do that.
Yeah.
Really? That's the big secret? We just talk? And it is.
Go figure.
It's one of those things I was reading it and I was like, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. Like, really? because it was like,
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's merit there, right? Because our lodges
imagine
love
that.
to talk as is, but we get caught up on the pointless stuff and dwell into it for hours and hours and fail to get to those core items that
Yeah,
really help us, the things that really, really
yeah.
matter.
And it's amazing what you don't see in the old minute books.
That's a great point. So bringing up old minute books, and we've talked about Kansas Lodge research. I'm going to try not to cough getting through this. I've got, and a bag of mints, so disregard that. But you'll see over here, we've got actually, here's one in the car, 5 kits ready to go out. The
Oh,
Grand Lodge of Kansas helped fund 3 more of those bad boys. They are all programmed, they're all built, they're all ready to go. I've got one in the car that I need to dump, and it will be ready to go as well. So if you're in Kansas, we're offering this to Kansas lodges right now, but we've helped countless other jurisdictions build like-minded programs like the Brothers in Massachusetts. And if your jurisdiction is interested in this, get a hold of me. We're glad to give you our blueprint of what we've done to help you. But we're offering these out on loan to Kansas lodges right now for free to get your history preserved before something happens to it, before something happens tomorrow and your precious books end up like that page in the Hayes book where you just can't barely read it anymore because of damage, or it burns up in a fire, or you guys close and it ends up in an estate sale. We don't know the future, but if we can scan that today, we can preserve it for years to come and at least have the data and keep that lodge, their memory alive and be able to learn from it. So if you're a Kansas Lodge or a member of a Kansas Lodge watching this and you're interested, even you, Brother Neeley, let us know. We will get you one of these kits just as soon as possible. Brother, we typically end this out with a toast. I'm on antibiotics with COVID, so I'm toasting with a Coke Zero. But would you mind leading us in a toast this evening?
well, the first thing I need to do is I need to get out of the lodge room.
Fair.
Because for those of you that are familiar with the laws of Kansas Masonry, to toast you in here would be an offense against the body, and that would be bad. So I join you from the preparation room, which I think is okay. And if it's not, please.
We can hear you, but
Got me some slack. So, you good?
Oh, yep, back.
Good.
You're back. Kind of.
Walking? We're back?
Yep, there he is. Now he's moving.
Okay. Forgive me, brothers. We're good? We're good? We're good?
Good. Go for it.
I wanted to join you, like I said, I wanted to join you from the preparation room, but now I will join you from the hallway with the past masters. To all my brethren, wherever dispersed, I wish you all the best. Thank you for joining us tonight. And cheers.
Cheers. Brother Michael Stoops threw in the comments there, he said Leadership Academy 2025 is going to be in Dublin, Ireland. I'm actually down for that. It's been written. It is what it is. It's got to happen now. It's been written.
Stoops, I'm supposed to hike the West Highland Way in 2025. I don't know that I can do both. Can we, I don't know, combine the two or something? I don't know.
But there'll be cannon fire toasts in Ireland. What's the worst?
Cannon fire toast.
Bunch of
Do you know what the West Highland Way is? The West Highland Way is hiking with every night as a cannon fire toast in a pub.
Stoops says no. Dublin, Ohio. Oh, Ohio. Yeah,
Ohio.
That's probably more manageable.
We're good. I'm good on that.
There you go. Well, brother, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me. And Alex and the rest of the craft and all my brothers watching. I'm so sorry for boning this up so bad with the both camera angle and the technology. We went from a great signal to my phone saying I had no internet. Period. It's been kind of I admit it's been a circus of my own making. So I apologize, but thank you for bearing with us.
No, you were fantastic, brother. You've got me locked in. I can't wait to get out there now and do some digging through those records with you. And hopefully we can get you one of these kits to get those preserved.
Absolutely.
100%. Well, brother, thank you so much. Please tell your family hello, and thank you for letting us steal you away for a little bit this
Likewise.
evening. With that, everyone
Thank
out
you.
there, thank you for watching. Until next time, keep preserving the history of Freemasonry, and we will see you in a couple weeks right back here on Historical Light. Have a great night.